Good morning. Welcome in to Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me.
What's going on, everybody?
What's going on, man? It is a Thursday morning. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna be straight up. I try to be straight up with you guys as much as possible. I'm dragging ass a little bit this morning. It was
a late night for you.
It was that overtime Creighton game. Listen, I know nobody cares about the struggles of being, quote unquote, of being a morning show host. Those 8 o'clock tip-offs that go long, that's a tough turnaround.
Tough
for
hang
me.
for Ravi Lulla.
It is. It's a tough turnaround for me.
Although 8 o'clock is your dinner time, so how actually late is 11 o'clock to you?
So usually I am in bed before that.
11 o'clock is your 7.
I'm definitely home before 11 or 11:30 as it was last night. We will get into the Creighton game. Their loss to Villanova for sure. We've got a terrific show for you here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. Of course, as always, you can join us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. But today, it's the day after signing day. We have a lot of Matt Rhule audio. He said some really interesting stuff. I actually thought his press conference was a little shorter than I was expecting. It was just a brief 36 minutes. I thought he might go a full hour talking about guys, but no, just a nice little 36-minute for Coach Rhule. He seemed like he maybe missed talking to the media a little bit.
The opening segment was 7 minutes.
That's true. Yeah, his opening statement was extensive for sure.
I said segment. Yeah, statement. I'm too much of a radio.
I would say
we say the opening segment way too many times. Opening statement
for Matt Rhule. So we'll get to some of that audio. Of course, we will also get to Mitch Sherman. He's joining us at 8 o'clock from The Athletic. It's Thursday, which means we got to talk to our guy, B. Edwards, Brian Edwards, our Vegas insider, see if we can make a little money this weekend. And our third and final guest of the day will be Michael Bruntz, the Husker 24/7. We love talking to Bruntsy, so those will be our guests for today.
And I have a curveball for you today, Robbie. Each guest that we have on, I have a Christmas question for him to end the interview.
I love it. I love to hear it. Hurrdat Hot Seat as well will be today. So got a jam-packed show for you. Of course, always room for our beloved listeners on the show as well on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline, 888-638-4876. Or we've already got a lot of Andrews popping off in the chat already.
Not only do we have an Andrew, we have a Roger. Like, this is great.
Yeah, we've got an Andrew and a Roger and an Andrew Rogers. You don't get a lot of duplicate Ravis in the chat.
No, not too many.
Not quite.
You know what? I got to tell you, man, you're the one and only that I know.
If we were streaming in Mumbai, maybe, but which technically we could be. We had a listener in the Philippines yesterday.
Is Ravi as common as John in Mumbai?
Not quite. Rajas.
Okay.
Raj is like your super common name. Ravi's common, but it's more like
is it more of like a Nick?
I'm trying to
of a Chris.
think. No, that's too common still. I would say
an Alex.
Yeah, maybe like an Alexander or a Jacob. Like it's not a weird name, but it's not as common as like a Joe or a John or an Andrew. Apparently,
you calling me basic?
I'm calling you common. There's like the rapper.
All right, good save.
That is what we've got on tap for you here today. But we got some really interesting stuff yesterday about the recruiting class. But before we dive into that, there are some things, and I kind of wanted to lead off with this, with the quarterback room, because obviously some really great news with Dylan Raiola signing, with Danny Kaelin signing, even as
provided depth.
Yeah, even as I think critical is probably the right word that I've been of Danny Kaelin throughout his high school senior year. I do think that is an important signing for Nebraska to get him into the class. And so that was really great. On the other side of things, last night we find out yesterday evening, I guess it was confirmed last night, Chubba Purdy going into the transfer portal. And it also sounds like what seemed like a sure thing done deal yesterday, how things change within the minds of 18 to, I guess, in Casey Thompson's
25-year-old,
like 29-year-old. I don't know how old he is. He's on the Chris Wenke plan at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like seems like Casey Thompson will not be joining the team now. From the latest that I'm hearing, I'm not totally sure what changed.
You're completely bought in on that?
I was yesterday. Well, I was bought in yesterday that he was going to be there. What I'm hearing today and last night was that doesn't seem like it's going to happen.
So the reason I may push back on that,
okay, yeah, absolutely,
is when Dylan Raiola committed.
Mm-hmm.
He days before he committed, he tweeted a photo of purpose out, the definition of purpose. And then last night, Casey Thompson adds that same exact photo to his Instagram story.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to say that I am a mind reader and that they mean the exact same thing even.
Yeah.
But I thought it could be the ultimate troll if Casey Thompson tweeted that or posted that on his Instagram page and wasn't using it in the sense of Nebraska like Dylan Raiola was.
Sure.
And using it the other way. Like, does that make sense? Like, Casey Thompson doesn't seem like that type of guy.
Like, I don't think he was trolling, really, which is kind of how that would come off.
It would come off if he's like, no, I'm completely
Now,
out.
I will say it wouldn't surprise me if he still was coming on staff as a, like, grad assistant or
quarterback's
analyst. Coach? I don't think it's the quarterback's coach. I'm pretty sure that's still going to be Glenn Thomas. But it doesn't seem like he's going to play this year, at least not for Nebraska.
Well, so that's okay. And I didn't think he was going to play this year anyway.
Not like play, but
you don't think he's going to be
on the roster.
Player.
Yes, I don't think he's going to be on the active roster this year, which is the way it was heading. It wouldn't surprise me if he still is involved in some capacity.
And that's a good point and something to keep an eye on. Because the whole look, let's be completely honest.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan Raiola is starting. He's your starting quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though Chubba Purdy is gone,
mm-hmm.
I'm not overly worried about the room because you can still add a few pieces that you need to provide depth.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can get the guys in there that are okay with being competitors in practice, and if God forbid you see a similar situation as you saw this year, maybe find the field. But Dylan Raiola is going to be your quarterback. So even if Casey Thompson were in the room, he wasn't going to be the quarterback.
Right. And I think that's why I liked Casey Thompson as an option for depth, because he does have experience actually playing high-level college football, but I don't think there would have been an expectation on his part to actually compete for a starting job. Now, maybe that's where the disconnect came in, is maybe he still did want to compete, and it's like, hey, bud, we kind of just want you here as a mentor. But there are options out in the transfer portal still if Nebraska wants to bring in a guy that is more of a depth piece. There's some guys from the FCS level that are in there that maybe want a chance to prove themselves.
Hey, look, I still like a little Matthew Sluka action.
You do love Matthew Sluka. You've been on that train the whole time, which I got to give you credit for. There's some random guys that maybe have, like Matthew Sluka, as you mentioned, he's a senior, so he'd be more of a sort of stopgap, just emergency. You wonder if he maybe wants a chance to play. But you've got a guy and I don't know anything about this guy except for what he was coming out of high school, Sam Jackson from Cal. He's a redshirt sophomore, or was a redshirt sophomore this year. So that kind of would maybe fit Coach Rhule's multiple year type guy and say, hey, he could come in and compete for a starting job there. Bryson Barnes from Utah is another example of a guy that would kind of fit that mold as well. So you've got there's a Chandler Morris from TCU. There's a bunch of guys that are probably not going to be in line for starting jobs at any Power 5 school, maybe not at very many Group of 5 schools.
And especially at this rate.
Yes.
Because you see how quarterbacks have flown off the board,
mm-hmm.
Especially the top names.
The high-end guys, yeah.
So when you get down into the weeds of the transfer portal quarterback slate,
mm-hmm.
these guys are going to have a come-to-Jesus moment at some point of, okay, maybe my dream of being the starting quarterback at
a Power 5 school.
Let's call it, for example, Purdue,
sure.
Right? My dream of playing college football at a Power 5 school like a Purdue, a smaller end, big, a major conference, but on the bottom of the chart,
mm-hmm.
It's not in the cards for me. But what could be is me competing
sure.
at a school like Nebraska. When you have a head coach like Coach Rhule that says, it's an open competition across
for everybody,
the map.
For everybody.
Across the map.
That's one of the things he said yesterday, because somebody asked, I think it was, I can't remember his name now, but it was somebody asked if Dylan Raiola was going to get an opportunity to compete right away. And Coach Rhule kind of looked at him and goes, everybody gets to compete right away. Like, everybody gets that opportunity. Now, it's obviously more realistic for Dylan Raiola to win a job, but look at what we saw from him last year, right? Mikhail Bayer ended up starting some games, playing a ton of football. You had guys that were not scholarship guys even, and guys that were buried on the depth chart that maybe were scholarship guys, end up playing real serious roles for this Nebraska team. So when he says everybody's open to competition, I believe him, because that's what we saw last year.
Ravi, can you imagine if Coach Rhule stood up there and said, no, actually, DR doesn't have a chance to play this
Yeah,
year?
Now,
what is he supposed to say in that? Like, what?
We're going to redshirt him.
Asking?
We're going to redshirt him.
I'm not talking about that today, with all due respect.
Guys, Dylan Raiola is the top recruit in the nation at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
Like, he may go one, they may have a little rock'em sock'em
either
robots
one or
battle
two, depending on
with the kid that went to Alabama. But Dylan Raiola is the best thing to come to Nebraska since 2005, 2008 in terms of prospect.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't remember. When did Marlon Lucky come? Was it
so? Marlon Lucky was, I believe, class of 06, and then Baker Steinkuhler was also a 5-star. He was 08. So both of those.
So I was around the neighborhood for both of them. Dylan Raiola is playing next year. That's it. There's nothing in the room right now that is preventing Dylan Raiola from taking the first snap against UTEP.
Yeah, nothing at all. I think there will be another quarterback added to the room. It might be like a guy that got kind of name dropped early because he had the connection to Rhule back at Baylor, because much like Casey Thompson, he's been in college forever. Jerry Bohannon is one. He's coming from South Florida. That would make sense a lot in that kind of Casey Thompson, mentor. You're probably not going to play unless something bad happens, like somebody gets injured, whatever, knock on wood. We hope that doesn't happen. But hey, you're kind of there for depth and experience, and maybe you want to be a coach someday. Mm-hmm. That would be that. And then, like I said, you wouldn't believe how many former 4-stars are in here as redshirt sophomores that just never got a chance. And now they have kind of nowhere to go and not a ton of interest. I'm looking at a guy from Auburn right now. I don't know anything about him. Robbie Ashford from Hoover, Alabama. From
Ravi?
Robbie.
Oh.
With double B and a Y. But he's from Hoover, Alabama. He's a redshirt sophomore, was a 4-star coming out of high school. There's a bunch of Robbie Ashfords in the transfer portal still. And those are the kind of guys that a lot of time ends up dropping down to an FCS level or dropping down to a group of 5 level. And instead of doing that, maybe be hey, come provide some depth at Nebraska. And
there's depth everywhere.
Yeah, there's a ton of options here. So I know people are sort of freaking out about freaking out's probably too aggressive, but a little concerned about the depth in the room.
No, but I think you're right by saying concerned to freaking out is more where people are leaning about this Chubba Purdy transfer portal
which I
ad.
Don't totally get.
Nor do I, because Chubba Purdy wasn't going to be the guy this year. He was just going to be a depth piece, but there are so many other bodies out there, and this staff is so good about finding the next guy and also the right guy. So there shouldn't be any concern at this point. You know how far away we are from football season?
Also,
people are begging right now to get into August so we can see Dylan Raiola play.
Well, and here's the other thing, right, is you've got, I know people don't love this, but Heinrich Harburg did start a bunch of games this year.
And even if he's not in the room fully, he still is an option on this team.
Yeah, a depth as an emergency quarterback. You've got, by the way, another Elite 11 quarterback in your recruiting class to provide depth there too. I don't know that people appreciate how big of an ask it is to go out and get, because I know people are oh, well, they should have got Kyle McCord too, or they should have gotten whatever, XYZ, whoever it was. Maybe not as high profile a guy as McCord once Raiola got into the fold. But I've heard a ton of people ask, well, why don't you go get somebody that's, maybe can compete and start, compete for depth or compete for the job and add depth and whatever. You've got 2 true freshmen, Elite 11 quarterbacks in that room. How many older guys, which is why I understand why Chubba left, how many older guys are signing up for I'm probably never going to play here. Mm-hmm. That's what you're looking at. If you're from the outside looking in, I know we all have different feelings about Danny Kaelin and what his timeline is in terms of being ready to play college football. I think it's probably a couple years of development to be ready. But you look at it from the outside, you're like, oh, they just signed 2 Elite 11 guys that that are true freshmen. I'm probably not playing here ever. That one of those guys is probably not playing here either. Like one of those guys probably ends up transferring. Why would I add my name to the mix when this is my one transfer, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't make a ton of sense if you're an outside guy that wants a chance to compete and still think you have a chance at the NFL or a high level or whatever at that. That's why we're talking about a guy like a Matthew Sluka who probably doesn't have NFL upside, but maybe wants to be part of a Power 5 program.
Unless you bring in Cam Ward, unless you bring in DJU.
Yeah.
Dylan Raiola is your guy next year.
Yeah.
End of story.
And that's okay. And it's better than okay.
And then you have conversations with some of these guys in the portal, whether they come from the FCS level or they were at the FBS level and just want a change of scenery.
Yeah, and their backup roles or whatever, yeah.
You have the conversation with, hey, every day in practice, you compete.
Yeah.
Because you don't know if we're going to go to you, say, Dylan Raiola is struggling. Like if Dylan Raiola is the starting quarterback next season and he starts to struggle, it could be you. Or, Dylan Raiola banged up a little bit. It could be you. Like you always have to be ready. There will be people that you can fill up in this room that are cool with that role.
Absolutely.
That are because they saw what happened in Nebraska this year. They know how much or how the Big Ten Conference operates. It's a bruising industry. It's a bruising conference to play in. When you're the starting quarterback in the Big Ten, you take shots.
Well, it's not like Nebraska's an outlier, right? I mean, look at what happened to Florida State's season, right? Florida State had a better quarterback situation than Nebraska, obviously, with Jordan Travis. Then he gets injured. You've got Tate Rodemaker, who played respectably. He gets banged up. He has a concussion.
And now you're on a third stringer for the ACC championship game.
Now you have a true freshman third stringer in the ACC championship game that he won, by the way. Like, he came in a really tough spot and was able to win. This is not unique to Nebraska across college football. You generally need multiple quarterbacks to make it through the season, which is I get why people are nervous about what the quarterback room looks like, but it's also why I think there's going to be opportunities for guys to come in. Now, it might not be until spring. Mm-hmm. I would maybe not expect anything until spring when guys figure out where they're on depth charts and things like that at other places, right? Because you're going to have more opportunities, but I don't think it's crazy to think that they're going to get somebody on the transfer portal. I would bet it's a multi-year guy, probably. I would, unless it's like a Jerry Bohannon or somebody like that, where it's like, hey, they're on the really older end and they're just kind of trying to transition into coaching like we thought the situation with Casey Thompson might be. But this isn't a situation where nobody's going to want to come and play here, because we heard Matt Rhule talk about it yesterday, right? People don't want to leave here. That makes people want to come play here, right? He talked a bunch yesterday about how the players are his best recruiters.
Mm-hmm. Because Coach Osborne is his best recruiter.
But like the players specifically, and we can get, because he shouted out a ton of people yesterday, right?
He shouted out at least 10. He probably made one portion of this team, either an offense or defense, with how many players he shouted
probably out. Did. He probably named a top 11, a 2 deep maybe even. But he was talking about how the players, because nobody knows what it's actually like in a program better than the players. And if you're running a program the right way, then those players become your best recruiters, because all of a sudden you have not just, and Coach Rhule's talked about, they talked about this on the Pat McAfee show. He goes, you can't really do a sales job on these guys anymore, right? Because they can leave, because they do have this opportunity to transfer one time without penalty, because you do have social media and cameras and stuff all over the place where they can see what it's really like. And then you've got these other guys that they're on their visits with, that are hosting them on their visits or whatever, and they tell you what it's actually like there. Like, I know for a fact that Dylan was texting guys before he actually got on campus, when he was kind of re-engaging with Nebraska. He was texting with current recruits and he was texting with current players to see what it's really like, because he's like, yeah, I like Coach Rhule. I like what he's talking about. My heart feels like it's in Nebraska, but what's it actually like there? And obviously the return that he got was like, yeah, this is the place you want to be. And you see it with guys like Ty Robinson that are coming back for 6 years and stuff like that, where this is a place people don't want to leave, which means it's also a place that people are going to want to come.
You can be a salesman, you just can't be a sleazy
Yeah,
used car salesman.
Yeah.
Like Coach Rhule's a salesman
Sure.
in a lot of ways.
All coaches are by nature.
Think about like that phone call he had with Dylan Raiola. He said he sat down and he was just completely honest and transparent and said, make sure this is right for you.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure this decision is really what you want. We are thrilled to have you.
Yeah, you're interested.
As a part of this program, but make sure it's best for you. That's how he approached that phone call. Now, on another end of that stick, I'm like, well, did you actually like really do that, or did you like mute the phone when he said like, "Hey, I want to come to Nebraska," and you like jumped up and down in your office?
I was gonna say
maybe screamed out, "If we die, we die," like something like that. Like that seems a little more down the right alley for that phone call, but maybe Coach Rhule was professional the whole time and, it never really considered the idea of hitting that mute button.
I imagine one of those situations where he kind of gets his spiel out and he goes, hey, Dylan, like, make sure this is the right place for you. Make sure you're serious about this, all this stuff. And then as soon as they hang up the phone, you get the explosion. You get the celebration. It's like those movies where as soon as you hang up the sales call and you nail it, you just lose your mind and everybody's celebrating. I could imagine something like that happening with the Coach Rhule situation. But no, I mean, that's the best thing you can say about Coach Rhule. And we heard it yesterday from Caleb Benning. We heard it yesterday from Carter Nelson. We heard it yesterday with Coach Rhule, the way he was describing how he talked to players, and it backs up. One of the things that Caleb said to us yesterday is his actions back up his words, right?
Mm-hmm.
We saw his actions the way all the recruits and players talked about him. We heard his words during the press conference of, hey, I want to make sure this is the right place for you, right? How many guys in the country, when a 5-star calls them out of the blue and says, hey, by the way,
your first 5-star in like 15, 20 years.
My heart's at Nebraska. How many coaches are like, hey, pump the brakes for a second here. Are you sure this is the right place for you? Like, how many coaches in the world have the presence and the stones to say that?
It's kind of like, when you got in trouble as a kid. If your mom yelled at you, you didn't really feel that bad because you're like, yeah, I probably deserve that. But when she said, I'm disappointed in you, that hit harder. It's kind of like this with a coach. When he's there for you, it hits you harder.
Coming up next, we will get more into Coach Rhule's comments on signing day here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We are live on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, all the places. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me as well.
Hey, man.
We are talking signing day. We are talking about Coach Rhule and his process. We heard him there. He gave a lot of credit to a lot of different people. And, I appreciate that. I appreciate that he recognizes how extensive of an effort it is to get recruits on campus just even before they ever sign, right?
To see the state, see the city.
And it's having coached at a small school where either the head coaches kind of have to do everything, or it's like the head coach and maybe one other person doing everything in terms of like travel itineraries and stuff like that. Like, that's stuff that doesn't have to cross Coach Rhule's desk. And it's a lot. So those people deserve a ton of credit because it is like organizing and getting all that together is a pretty huge deal. On the YouTube chat, Travis was asking about, there were a couple guys that,
I'm just being annoying in the YouTube chat.
That's fine. There were a couple guys that, they were kind of making late pushes on 5-star guys, like Ryan Wingo ends up signing at Texas. There's a 5-star. Brennan Baker. Did he end up signing yesterday? I'm not sure that he did.
I can do some digging here.
Yeah, do a little digging there for me. But I do agree that
Texas.
He ended up going to Texas as well.
5-star signs with Texas 22 hours ago.
So I do agree that there needs to be some additions in the wide receiver room for depth and for experience there. I really like the young guys. I like I like Malachi Coleman and Jalen Lloyd and Jaden Doss. I think they're planning on having Isaiah Garcia Castanedas back as well. We'll see how he is coming off of an injury. That'll be an interesting development for sure. But Travis also brought up the offensive line room, and I actually feel okay there. If you look at first of all, Nebraska brought in a bunch of guys on the offensive line. Some of their highest rated recruits, whether it's Grant Bricks, whether it's Preston Talmua. You've also obviously got the Rhule kid from Las Vegas. You've got Gibson Pyle. You've got a bunch of offensive linemen in this class to go on top of, and I forgot a couple of guys, Jake Peters, Landon Davidson as well, to go on top of the young guys you brought in last year, your Sam Sledge, your Gunnar Gatula, your Brock Knutson, your Mason Goldman, your Justin Evans Jenkins. That's 5 guys right there. I think I named at least 6 more out of this class. Not to mention, you still have guys coming back in Teddy Prohaska. You've got Ben Scott's coming back. They're not sure. He said he's not sure about Ethan Piper yet.
Mm-hmm. That one's an interesting interesting comment, because he said Piper, he could play or he'll be a coach for us.
Yeah.
And
I just kind of slid it under the radar there.
And the first person I thought of was Casey Thompson.
Yeah.
After he had said that, I'm like, well, if Ethan Piper can coach for them, sure as heck Casey Thompson can coach for them.
You would think so, right? But you got Bryce Benhart coming back.
Right.
I actually feel, reasonably good about that offensive line room. Am I crazy?
No, you're not. And so just to follow up on what Travis was referring to, he was talking about Jordan Seaton, the number 1 tackle that was all in on Colorado, and now he's torn. And look, Nebraska, I believe, has reached out to him already and can make a push for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure they would take him. Absolutely.
Because if you look at Colorado in terms of how they built their roster so far, it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
How many commits they have right now, Andrew?
Colorado has 6 commits to their name. Most teams on average have somewhere between, we'll just say 17 or 18. Like you'll find the randoms, like UCLA has 11 commits. Some teams have 15, but a lot of teams have the high 20s. So if I'm trying to find like a good meeting ground,
yeah,
it would
low
probably
20s.
Be a high teen number.
Yeah.
Colorado is below Eastern Michigan, Texas State, and Northern Illinois.
Yep.
They are merged between Eastern Michigan and South Alabama at 99 in the 24/7 recruiting rankings. Dude, you know how
that's pretty bad.
You know how much you should focus on high school recruiting when you are a college football team?
More than Colorado is.
You can't just go into the transfer portal and expect to do this every year. You can't. You tried that in year 1, and what did it get you? You got 4 wins in year 1. And then you got a team that was just kind of like, I don't really want to be here.
Also, you're not going to have your son at quarterback and a 5-star.
And Travis Hunter on the outside playing both ends of the field.
Yeah, deciding to transfer in every year. Like, those guys aren't going to be available every year.
You only had that because these were the guys you were connected with.
Yeah, because
at your previous stop.
Well, not just at his previous stop. He's known Travis Hunter since he was a kid.
He's known Shadir Sanders his whole life.
He has, accurate. But yeah, I get it in the sense of, if you're a high school kid and you see the way that Dion has treated these guys as disposable, why would I want to sign up for that? It's the exact opposite. And listen, I'm not even saying it won't work, because it might. He might have a year. He might have a Mel Tucker year where the transfer portal hits just right, and he gets a Kenneth Walker, and he gets just enough guys in just the right spots that it's able to pop off. I've been saying pop off a lot in the last 4 days. I don't know why.
Hey, pop off, man.
It's like big.
You're in the Gen Z mode.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening. Well, yeah, it's bussing.
Mm-hmm. What is that? Purple drink?
Yeah, we're spilling the tea. It's the purple drink. But I'm not saying it's never gonna work. What I am saying is it's incredibly difficult and incredibly unlikely that you will find sustained success recruiting that way.
Just in the transfer portal.
That is, and that's why Coach Rhule is so adamant about doing it the way he's done it. Because is it a quick fix? No. Is it a long-term fix? Yes. And I am all for the long-term fix over the quick fix. We've seen flash in the pan seasons. Mike Riley went 7-0 to start a season, for God's sake. Like, I'm over the quick, like, oh, hey, let's just turn this thing around.
What's that?
Travis says, just don't do a desk pop. That's a really funny reference to an underrated movie in The Other Guys. But
not to get distracted.
I know.
Through your talking
the
points.
YouTube just always has me. But it is not I'm over the quick fixes. I'm over because it's honestly, I think that's what went wrong with Coach Frost. I mean, a lot of things went wrong with Coach Frost, but early on, rather than digging in and doing the hard work, he tried to get he sacrificed some culture for guys that he thought were better players. And we saw how that ended up going. He tried to rebuild the culture in like year 3 or year 4, and it was too late, right? There was too much that had gone wrong at that point. Coach Rhule has done it in a way that you see already how people want to be here.
And look, you can quick fix positionally.
Yes.
You just don't quick fix a team.
The whole team.
And that's what you're referring to.
Especially with a team like Colorado, who needed a whole overhaul. They won one game before Deion got there.
And you need to find longevity.
Yeah.
And if you are going to go the direction that Colorado is headed, they aren't going to be a successful program more than
long-term.
Maybe the once in a blue moon sort of reference. In order to be built for the long haul, you have to have some sort of development taking place in your program.
Absolutely. But here's the thing.
It's not the NFL. You don't just go into free agency and sign a guy and expect him to be awesome, because the guys in free agency that you are signing that are awesome require a lot of money. And that's why they cap in the NFL how many of those guys you can get. In the transfer portal, not all guys in the portal, my man, are studs.
No, they are not.
And more times than not, they either stay in the portal and go nowhere, they return to their university, or they go down a level.
Coming up next, we'll wrap up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me. We are on AM 590 ESPN Omaha. We're also on ESPN Tri-Cities in central Nebraska. And we are, of course, on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook as well. Wanted to switch gears a little bit here real quick before we talk to Mitch Sherman at 8 o'clock and talk real quickly about some local college basketball last night. Nebraska and Creighton both on the court yesterday. Nebraska snuck by,
escaped
a North Dakota team.
Down 10 at half.
Down 14 early in the second half. They were able to come back and win. I think the margin ended up being like 9 or something. I'll be honest.
The final score was 83-75.
Ooh, 8. I was close. But
if you were playing the prices right, you wouldn't have won.
That's true. I went over. Shoot. The price is wrong, Bob.
No, that's not what he says.
Oh, that's the TV version or the radio version, as it were. So Nebraska is able to get a win. And listen, North Dakota is a real solid Summit League team. You probably would have liked to see them not fall behind by double digits the way they did, but came away with a victory, which is the most important part there. And then on the Creighton side of things, obviously they played Villanova, had a really tough loss, which we can get into a little bit. But I did want to kind of start with the Doug McDermott retirement. Not retire.
Tell us about your goosebump moment.
I mean, okay. So Shane, go ahead and play his speech real quick. It's only about a minute.
First thing I'd like to say is, Doug, you were right. I shouldn't have redshirted you your freshman year. So it's time to come clean with that. But I just want to thank Doug, you on behalf of our program and of your family, and also thank that group over there that was so instrumental to the success we had at that time.
Wow.
I'm speechless right now, guys. I think you can hear the emotion in my voice. First off, thanks for drawing up all those plays for me, big guy. And thanks for letting me shoot all the shots, guys. I appreciate it. But really, man, I don't want to be long. I know we got a big game against Villanova tonight. I really just want to thank my teammates, my family, every single person in this crowd for making this the best 4 years of my life. And this will always be home to me. Thank you.
You can take all the shots when you make all the shots.
That's true. Yeah. When you're shooting the percentages that Doug did, it makes it a lot easier to go ahead and let those shots go up. Yeah. So I guess my goosebumps moment, there was a couple for me kind of during that ceremony. They showed a video montage of some of his biggest shots and moments. And so that was, the shot against Providence where he hits his 3,000th career point was obviously one. There's a game winner that he hit against St. John's his senior year. That was a big one as well. And then honestly, just hearing him kind of get choked up a little bit, the way he did there in that clip was a little bit of one for me too, as well, because I think, and I know I get this a lot, is I think people kind of view Doug as this like basketball robot where he doesn't really emote and he doesn't really it seems like he's basically just basketball all the time. He doesn't show a lot of emotion. He's very kind of like stoic and sort of like stone faced. And to see him actually get emotional about coming back to Omaha and being back at the CHI Health Center was actually pretty cool. Just to see him, to see the moment kind of hit him a little bit because he was so, when he wasn't on the court actually playing, he was pretty reserved. So that was super cool. And then it was also really cool just to see all of his teammates there with him. My personal fave, Ethan Rogge, was there. Jahens Manigat was there from that team. I think Gibbs is coaching, so I don't think he could make it. But it was just really cool to see all of his teammates there to kind of support him and be out there for him. Obviously, it would have been nice to get a win. And so that Creighton wasn't able to do that there. But it was honestly just a super cool moment to see, kind of just relive that period in Creighton history where, I talked about earlier this week, like the 73 win Warriors is as much fun as I've ever had watching basketball in my life. Even though it didn't end the way I wanted it to, it was kind of the same thing with Doug McDermott's senior year. That team, watching them over the course of the season is about as much fun as I've ever had watching basketball and being a sports fan, even though it didn't end the way I wanted it to. Just getting to see them perform on a night in, night out basis. The Rogge game against Villanova is still one of my favorite things that's ever happened as a sports fan. But going in, night out, and just knowing like, yeah, Doug's probably going to get 30, and it's not going to be that big of a deal. Like, he's the only guy in college basketball I've ever seen get a quiet 30, like on a regular basis, right? Like 30 in college basketball is a huge number, right? And just to see him go in on a night in, night out basis, and they were kind of going over some of his games, and they're like, yeah, he had 39 in this one. Oh, he had 39 in this one too. Oh, he had 38 in this one. It was just, you kept going down the list. You're like, man, there were a lot of those. And they're like, oh yeah, by the way, he scored 45 in his senior game, whatever.
Well, when you shoot 30 on the low end of your points, that's why it's quiet.
Yeah, it was. And the crazy thing about Doug is, he kind of made the jokes about Coach Mack and about drawing up the plays and about all the guys letting him take the shots. Literally the only time in his career I remember him feeling like, oh, he's shot hunting was senior night, where he's like, yeah, I want to break the 3,000 at home. He needed like 34 or 38 points to get there. So the beginning of the game, you're like, oh, he's kind of looking for a shot a little bit. The rest of the time, it was crazy. It never felt like he was like shot hunting, which for a guy that scores that much is super unusual.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you watch Caitlin Clark play, and I know they're two different like scales of player in terms of like Caitlin playing college basketball. It's like the best player in women's college basketball. When Doug McDermott was playing, he's not the best player, but he's one of the best. But when you watch like how they play on the teams that they play on, you never look at Caitlin Clark and think she's shot hunting.
Yeah, no,
Like,
not really.
She creates for herself.
Mm-hmm.
She does a really nice job with the ball in her hands to either get to the rack or pull up when she knows she's feeling comfortable to shoot. That's kind of like Doug McDermott in his role when he played. Like he has a lot of great pieces around him, but when Doug has the basketball, it's just like, okay, like wherever he decides to pull up from, whether it's the 3-point line, whether it's getting to the rack, whether it's a mid-range jumper, like I'm cool with the look because that's a comfortable shot for Doug to take.
Well, and you trust his decision making, and that's
another big piece to that.
Transitioning into what we saw last night, one of the things that I thought was really missing from Creighton yesterday was some of the decision making. And
by the officials or by Creighton?
Both.
Because with 6 seconds to go, there seemed to be some weird decision making taking place at the scorers table.
There was a lot of weird stuff going on all around, and I am by no means going to blame this loss on the officials. Creighton didn't play well enough to win. They had opportunities to make game-winning plays, and they didn't. They had opportunities to.
Alexander had a drive at the end in OT that's a layup he makes. We'll call it 45 times out of 50.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, he makes it a ton. He had made it in overtime already. Sherman had a couple opportunities, a bunch of missed free throws. I think they missed 5 of their last 7 free throws, including 2 front ends of a 1-and-1, which is basically like missing 7 out of your last 9 free throws because you don't even get the opportunity on the second one there. They were sloppy at times. The offense was super stagnant, but it felt like, and I know they run a different type of offense now than they did when Doug was there, but it felt like at different points in the game that either Trey or Baylor or mostly those two, Ashworth to a certain extent, even Farabello some, where they were just kind of dribbling and playing ISO basketball and not really letting the game come to them, trying to force the issue. Now, Villanova deserves credit there because their defense was stifling. They played really, really good defense. But you saw moments where Creighton was moving the basketball and being a little bit more active on the offensive end where they got really good looks. They couldn't, for whatever reason, seem to tap into that consistently. Part of that's probably on them. Part of that's probably on Villanova. So I want to start there with the loss. Like I don't – because the officiating was super weird, especially at the end of regulation.
No, that's the only point I wanted to talk about the officiating was when they go to the scorer's table and it's a clear shot clock violation of Baylor Sherman.
Yes.
That
should have been Villanova ball with 6.5 seconds left.
With 6 seconds to go. And I'm like, okay, well, if that's not the call, then it's clearly off of Miller if that ball touches the baseline. But the ball did not touch the baseline. So then Miller saves it, and then it's a Baylor Sherman game-winning 3 that's taken away. And then the next play, Trey Alexander gets the inbounds. He's going to the rack. Looks like he probably travels on his shot attempt because it didn't touch anything. And I'm like, did people just like swallow the whistle in this moment?
Yeah, in a really weird way. So basically they got it wrong at every turn, whether it benefited Creighton or whether it benefited UConn. I don't understand a world in which Creighton got the ball back with 3.3 seconds. That's
hilarious.
That didn't seem like a viable option based on the things that had happened. And so basically what it seemed like they decided was that it wasn't a shot clock violation, which it certainly seemed like it was, that the ball didn't go out of bounds, which it didn't seem like it did, and that the 3-pointer by Baylor Sherman wasn't going to count because they had already decided the ball went out of bounds.
And none of his 3-pointers counted yesterday.
It's true. Ofer yesterday.
He actually snapped a 58-game streak of making a 3-point shot.
And, the one that didn't count that would have been a game winner, he also had one at the very end that looked like it was going in.
Dude, just came up short.
And that was just front iron. So Creighton fell, obviously, in overtime to Villanova. But despite that, still a really cool experience seeing Doug McDermott back in Omaha, getting his jersey retired. So even with the loss, it was a pretty cool night.
And Creighton has some things to work on.
Oh, absolutely. They absolutely do. Coming up next, our guy, Mitch Sherman from The Athletic here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me. We're live on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. Joining us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline is our guy, Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, how are you today?
I'm well. Robbie, Andrew, how are you guys?
Good morning, man. Good to see you.
Morning.
We are doing well, coming off of a big national signing day for Nebraska. I know you've been covering Husker football for a long time. What I guess the Callahan years had some really good signing classes as well. I don't know if you go that far back. I guess where does this kind of rank for you in terms of like off-season excitement levels that we've seen at Nebraska?
It's up there. I think just the Dylan Raiola, that one little narrative itself is in the top 2 or 3. It's hard to think of something that was more monumental than that for Nebraska to sign this quarterback. And it's not just that he's, a top 10 player nationally or was the number 1 prospect in this class for much of the cycle. It's that he's been on the radar for Nebraska for 2.5 years. I think that, and that he's named Raiola. I think that all bundled together makes that singular event of him committing on Monday and coming back into the picture last week and then signing yesterday. It was all just such a whirlwind thing because 2 weeks ago, we were not thinking about Dylan Raiola. We weren't talking about it. And I truly believe that neither was Matt Rhule. The only connection that stayed within the Nebraska program to Dylan was his uncle. And I don't know that we'll ever hear. I mean, maybe if Dylan makes it to New York someday as a Heisman finalist, and I'm not setting that as the bar that he needs to reach, but if he wants to do that, that's
Heisman
fine.
or bust.
Yeah, that'd be a good story to cover. Maybe at that point, the questions would get probing enough with Donovan. Donovan is not super forthcoming with just like revealing personal details. Matt Rhule is, and Matt Rhule will tell you pretty much anything that he's thinking, at least as it fits his strategy, his communication strategy. Donovan Raiola's communication strategy is different than Matt Rhule's. And while he has opened up some in his second year in the program, and I think is a friendly guy when you talk to him. It's not that he, and certainly he is with recruits and with people that he meets around the program, but he's not, I don't know that we'll ever hear from him exactly how he felt through this process. Like, honestly, from the time that Dylan committed to Georgia in May up until last Sunday when he's calling Matt Rhule and Dominic Raiola is making phone calls to former players from his era to gauge what they think about the Nebraska program and what's happened in the 6 months that they've kind of been out of the loop. The only guy who stayed connected was Donovan, and he's a closed book when it comes to that. And it'll be really interesting to see if we ever find out exactly, were they playing the long game? And did he think all along, we just got to wait this thing out and wait until signing day comes and we're going to get back in with Dylan? I don't know the answer to that, but I tried to answer every other question that I could with the piece that's out today on The Athletic about how Nebraska pulled this off.
Yeah, Mitch, I wanted to bring up that piece that you wrote on The Athletic. I think you just tweeted it out about an hour ago on The Athletic. So if you're not a subscriber, you absolutely should be. But what were some of the things that you did find out, some of the tidbits that you did find out about how this came to be? You mentioned Dom kind of reaching out to former teammates and things like that. What were some of the little nuggets that you were able to uncover that were the most interesting to you without obviously spoiling your piece there?
No, I'm happy to spoil it.
Go subscribe to The Athletic anyway, but he's going to spoil it. Well,
I can't get into the details of 2,000 words, or we'll be talking for an hour. But Dominic, at the same time that Dylan reached out to Matt Rhule on December 10th, this was a week ago Sunday, Dominic was doing his diligence behind the scenes, and he connected with some former teammates, and one of them is Damon Benning, who of course well and have talked to about this on the show. I heard it driving in my car one day last week, and it got me thinking to talk to Damon. So thank you for that that little kick in the pants. And, Damon shared some of the things with me that he shared with you. And we talked for quite a while about what Damon and Dom talked about on that Sunday. And it was interesting to hear how, as their conversation developed and progressed, that, Damon texted Matt Rhule about it, and Matt Rhule responded with exclamation point emphasis. Like, yeah, man, I know. I'm hearing it too. Like, obviously I think Rhule had some kind of a sense that something might be going on from his offensive line coach. And, Dominic has talked to Jay Foreman. They were teammates at Nebraska in 97 and 98. Damon and Dom, their careers bumped up against each other. They weren't on the team at the same time, but Jay and Dom were, and they were close and have stayed close. And he was another confidant for Dominic through this process, and lended some advice. And he lended advice to Dylan too about the just the support system that he would have if Dylan did choose Nebraska. But not just on the coaching staff. Of course, he has his uncle on the coaching staff, and he has people like Jay in the community around Nebraska, around Lincoln, who are there for him if he needs something that, he doesn't feel comfortable going to his position coach or his head coach about, and he needs to talk to somebody outside the program. There's options for Dylan to go to numerous people in the community here, and just how valuable that is. And he also emphasized to Dylan, Jay did, that, there's an opportunity for Dylan here at Nebraska that Jay didn't have at Nebraska, that Dominic didn't have at Nebraska, that Donovan didn't have when he played in college at Wisconsin, that Jay's father, Chuck Foreman, didn't have when he played in college and he was an NFL player like Dominic. And that is to be someone who comes in and changes a program. When those guys that I mentioned who played at Nebraska walked in the 90s, Nebraska was already at a certain level, and they helped elevate the program, but it wasn't necessarily a program altering, program changing type of player. Tommy Frazier, he did that for Nebraska, but, Dominic showed up 5 years later. They'd already won national championships. So it's hard to say how much that all swayed Dylan. I think in the end, there were a lot of factors, and the biggest one was that, like he said, this is family. This is in his blood. I got a tremendous sense of that when I was in Phoenix in February and talked to all of them about just what motivates them, why they do what they do, why Dylan has worked so hard at football over the years and studied it and poured himself into the game. And so much of it came back to family. I left those conversations, 9 or 10 months ago, thinking that he was going to end up at Nebraska. It took a route that not everyone foresaw, but the fact that he's here now, looking back at that, it doesn't surprise me.
Mitch, as you kind of take a look at the quarterback room as a whole now, with the addition of Dylan Raiola and Danny Kalen, you see Chubba Purdy enters the transfer portal last night. Obviously, Jeff Sims has already entered the transfer portal as well for Nebraska. So as you kind of take a deep dive into what they have right now, how are you assessing it? And then also, what do you think Nebraska is looking at right now in terms of adding maybe some veteran help, somebody with some games under their belt? Casey Thompson's name was tossed around a little bit last week and this week, but if it's not him and it's somebody in the portal, who do you think they're kind of eyeing up?
Yeah, well, Purdy leaving or getting ready to leave. He's not officially in the portal, but it's going to happen. His parents say it's happening. So that's about as good of a source as you can get on that one.
Right. I feel like I tell my parents most things, and the things I tell them.
If they're in the dark, then there's other problems. But that changes it. That changes the dynamic of the room for sure. You have two true freshmen and Heinrich Harburg, and you've got Luke Longball, who's a walk-on out of Iowa Western, and you've got Jack Wosh, who's a walk-on transfer from Ole Miss. It's a thin group, especially when you consider that two of those players have no experience at the college level. Now, Dylan comes in with a set of tools and skills and talent that are rare, but there is not a lot that you can trade for experience. Experience is the only way you can get it is by going out there and playing. And even if he's the starter on day one, it would benefit him a lot to have some people around him who have that experience. We heard yesterday that this Casey Thompson thing is at that point wasn't going anywhere, and the expectation was that he's not going to transfer back to Nebraska. I don't entirely close the door because I'll probably get a call when I'm done talking to you now. It says, close the door. It's not happening. Quit talking
I
about
didn't close it either.
But I mean, hey, we heard that yesterday, and then Chubba goes in and decides to leave. When Matt Rhule talked at 11:30 yesterday, he didn't sound like a guy who was expecting Chubba Purdy to leave. His name came up in the press conference, and I think that they expected or hoped, still hoped that they would have Chubba out there as a competitor in spring practice. So, but part of this has changed in the last 24 hours or 20 hours. So, okay, does that open the door for somebody like Casey? And if it's not Casey, then could you find somebody in the portal either now? Players can come out of the portal anytime. And there's this deadline in the first week of January to enter the portal. Mm-hmm. So whoever's in by January 4th or 5th, those are the only players you can get out until the spring. But then another period after spring practice in May exists for players to go in. I think they'll look. I think that it takes a unique player, mm-hmm. Because you're coming in alongside the 5-star recruit who is obviously seen as the future. And I don't know that there are a lot of veteran quarterbacks out there who are looking for a spot to come in and mentor freshmen. But maybe there's somebody with a connection to this coaching staff who understands, how they build and wants to get into coaching himself, who can fit that role. But it'll be a storyline to watch from now all the way up until May.
Mitch, how about outside of the quarterback position? In terms, I kind of want to marry what we opened up this whole segment with early signing day and the talk about the quarterback spot. In terms of areas of need, where do you think Nebraska has gotten better for next season, 1, and 2 for the future? Maybe it's the same for both.
Well, I think for the long-term future, they got better on the offensive line with this class. And, we don't know the exact breakdown of everything as it relates to, who's coming on scholarship and who's going to be on NIL assistance. And I guess it doesn't really matter because they signed 6 guys yesterday on the offensive line who are all scholarship worthy. And that's a big group of offensive linemen. I've seen it at 5 before, but 6 is a big group. And they need help at tackle. Right now, you've got Bryce Benhart and Teddy Prohaska in the program, and it looks good for your starting right and left tackle next season. But we've seen those guys, well, not Benhart, but we've certainly seen Teddy Prohaska suffer some injury issues. Mm-hmm. And you want to have some depth there. And depth is not necessarily going to come from your freshmen in the recruiting class. They do have Gunnar Gatula, who redshirted last year, who can play tackle. They might also look at him at guard if he's one of their top 5 guys on the line going into next season. It depends on how some things play out with players deciding to come back from injury or calling it a career. I'm looking at Ethan Piper. Turner Corcoran's also coming off of a big injury, and he's had multiple issues with his health too through his career. So we'll see how that progresses. But they got better on the offensive line for the long-term future. In the immediate present of what's happening right now, obviously quarterback is the biggest thing where they made a change with these 2 true freshmen and just overhauled the look of the group. I'd look at tight end and stay right there and bringing in some really dynamic guys. It's a different group of players too. You have 4 players, who are all some type of tight end. I've seen, Keelan Smith even listed as a wide receiver, but he's kind of a positionless player that Matt Rhule talked about when he described Carter Nelson. Both of those guys, there ought to be ways in this offense, especially with the some of the issues with depth and experience that Nebraska has at wide receiver, for them to come in and I think in Nelson's case, definitely help Nebraska right away. We'll see. Keelan Smith had a great senior season in Kansas City, and he played at a much higher level of football than what Carter Nelson did in 8-man in Nebraska. I'm interested to see with those two, and neither of them. Well, I know Nelson is not. Not sure on Smith, but I don't believe either of them are mid-year players. When they do get here, that there's going to be an opportunity for them to see how they fit into this program. And then Eric Ingerson and Ian Flint are more of your traditional tight ends. So with what Nebraska has coming back at that spot, and Thomas Fedoni now having a full year under his belt, and Nate Borkricher coming back, and some younger players like Ismail Smith-Flores, I do think they got a lot better at that position too.
We're talking with Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, you mentioned that offensive line group, and I'm fairly bullish on that group. They've signed, you mentioned the 6 guys in this class. They've signed 11 in the 2 recruiting classes that Coach Rhule has brought in. I guess my question for you there is, how much do you think that positionless type of mentality translates to the offensive line as well? Because I know, we've talked about it with the tight ends. We've talked about it. Coach Rhule talked about it with the defensive backs as well. We kind of have a lot of these guys. It's like, we're kind of worried about the tackle spots and we're not really sure here and there. Do you think they kind of apply that level of logic to, hey, we think these guys are athletic and move well and explosive, we're just going to put them out there? Like, how much do you think that applies to a spot like offensive line?
Well, I think they cross-train those guys, and they want them to be able to learn different spots. But especially at tackle, tackle's a tackle. And, I think you can be a tackle and play guard, but I don't think you can be a guard and play tackle effectively, especially if you've got a quarterback who needs time in the pocket and needs to be protected. If it's an option attack, a straightforward downhill running game, that's a different story. But in a pro-style offense, if you're going to throw it 30 times a game, if you're going to have a quarterback like Dylan Raiola or Daniel Kalen, who is more of a traditional pocket-style passer, I think you need offensive tackles who can match up against those elite pass-rushing defensive ends and backers who are coming off of the edge. So you can't just take a good athlete who's a positionless offensive lineman and stick him out there at left or right tackle and say, okay, go do your job. They've run into some issues when they've tried to do that in recent years. But yeah, there's a certain element to that absolutely on the inside of the offensive line. I mean, a guy like Justin Evans-Jenkins, he's positionless as far as it goes across the interior. He could ultimately be a center when Ben Scott's gone. He can back up Ben Scott. If something happens to Ben Scott, I think Justin Evans-Jenkins can step in there, but he can also start for you at guard. And they may take a guy who's a future tackle in the program. This is something that Iowa has done a lot in building their great offensive linemen and offensive lines. And they'll take someone who projects at tackle and ends up turning into a first-round draft pick as a tackle, and they'll play him at guard when they're a redshirt freshman or a sophomore. And I could see Nebraska doing something like that, as I mentioned a minute ago, with a player like Gunnar Gatula, or even Grant Bricks as he comes into the program. I mean, Grant Bricks, eventually he projects as a tackle because of his athleticism and his length and just the way that he can move. But as you get him ready, if he's somebody who can help you and you can put him at guard and he can move people in front of him, then great, put him out there.
Mitch, we heard you say already about the former players and how they've been kind of brought up in that conversation with Coach Rhule yesterday in terms of, kind of like big recruiters for the university. They're the best ones to be able to hear from because they experienced what it was like to play football at Nebraska. Then you heard Coach Rhule also mention Coach Osborne's name and saying that he's one of the best recruiters. Put him in a room with somebody and it's hard to tell Coach Osborne no. And I just think that was a cool piece because as the conversation went on during that press conference, and a listener pointed this out to me. You heard Rhule say, we took a lot of safeties who we hope will rush the passer. We want to be the fastest team out there. And that's a lot what Coach Osborne did in the early 90s. I mean, just how much do you credit Coach Rhule for being a lifelong learner and seeing that, hey, Coach Osborne made something work at Nebraska, and I think I can recreate it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things about him that's great is that he doesn't close any doors to give himself opportunities to grow and to learn and to make himself better as a coach and a leader. I think a lot of people in various aspects of football or sports, they want to take a side. Often there's two different factions. There's two ways to see it. And, Matt Rhule, I've seen over and over over this first year at Nebraska is, he wants to be able to capitalize on everything that's available to him. And, if there's two camps and there's two ways of seeing things, like, he's going to try to get both of those, take the positive elements of both of those and improve the Nebraska program. So yeah, the Osborne way of recruiting and of being open-minded to different schemes, and his offense changed through his years. Osborne's did. His defense changed and evolved through his years. I think you see elements of that with Matt Rhule. The defense that he ran in year one at Nebraska was considerably different than the defense that he ran when he was a young coach at Temple or when he was at Baylor. Some elements of it are the same, but he brought Tony White in. You learned from Tony White about what Tony wanted to do on the defensive side, and you saw the results in year one. It's exciting to think what year two can be in that defensive system, because there should be a pretty big jump, and they're getting so many of the key pieces back. That philosophy of having safeties who can play like linebackers, it's something that Nebraska has used, of course, in some of its great defenses in the past. But that's a staple of the Tony White system, and you can see it in the way that they go out and recruit defensive backs. In both of these classes, and in what they added somewhat in the portal last year, there's so many of these athletes on the defensive side who you put into that DB group. And there are 5 defensive backs in the system. So I get it. It's almost half of the defense. So you expect there's going to be a lot of spots used, but they can, even yesterday on signing day, they just continue to add pieces to that defensive backfield. And it's like, does Evan Cooper just have carte blanche to be able to add what? He's Matt Rhule's talent evaluator, his top guy. So I get the sense, like, if he wants somebody, generally he gets that guy. Like, he gets to pursue that guy. And they land a lot of them. So we're just starting to see the tip of the iceberg, I think, because most of the players who played in that secondary were veteran types. In 24, we're going to continue to see more of those young players emerge, and it'll be really interesting to see how all those pieces fit together.
All right, Mitch, you got 10 seconds here. I'm going to fit this one in quickly. I have to get a Christmas question into you. In a Christmas karaoke showdown, which holiday song would be your secret weapon?
For me to sing, that's not going to be a good idea in any situation. I don't know. I'll just go Silent Night, but I probably wouldn't be good at singing.
Silent Night. I love it, man.
Bringing the vibe down in the bar a little bit. Mitch Sherman, we appreciate it. Have happy holidays. We'll talk to you later, Mitch.
All right. Thanks, guys. Same to you.
See you, man.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio. We're halfway through the show here on a Thursday. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me. We're live on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, live from Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill on the H&H Chevrolet stage. Want to remind you, when you're driving, hands on the wheel, eyes and focus straight ahead. As the driver, you have one job, and that is to drive. This message brought to you by the NDOT Highway Safety Office. Wanted to hop in, change gears a little here, talk a little bit about volleyball, not necessarily what happened on the court for Nebraska. I feel like we covered that pretty well earlier this week.
Yeah, you guys did a good job on Monday, you and Avery.
But thank you. There's been a little bit of drama.
Yeah,
as of
weird.
late, which we kind of caught it at the end of the show yesterday. But I'll let you kind of explain the backstory, because you read it off to me and I was like, it struck me really oddly.
So former Husker, now Texas transfer, Kayla Caffey, shared some words for Whitney Launstein. And this was on her Instagram page, and it read, "Welcome to the side where we win championships," which is kind of like, okay, like a little bit of a
shot,
jab, but whatever. Yeah. And get loved on at the same time. Like, that's the part I bolded.
Yes.
So I'm going to read it again. "Welcome to the side where we win championships and get loved on at the same time." And so the only thing this could have any reference to is John Cook. That is the only thing.
Because if you, the only first, before, like, out of just in a vacuum, the only two things that could mean are like, hey, the fans don't support you or the program doesn't support you. And obviously,
we know the fans show
we
up.
obviously know it is not a fan situation between 92,000 at Memorial Stadium, between everybody showing up in Tampa. So that only leaves the program itself.
And, I don't know John Cook's personality, and I'm not going to pretend I know how he coaches and how these athletes over the years have received his coaching style. But I do know the players this season spoke very highly of him. So that's why it initially came as a shock to me.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, I know that there's been, I guess, some players in the past, and I know you've talked to some people that know players. They're like, yeah, he can be a little gruff sometimes. But I mean, I want to be totally clear. We've never heard anything in terms of like being out of line or over the line or anything like that. And so what I think it comes down to is kind of coaching styles versus personality types, right? And that's sort of the thing that I wanted to get into here, because there are, and I know this from being a coach, from being a player, it the same, whether it's men, women, boys, girls, kids, whatever, certain people react very differently to certain types of coaching, right? I mean, I have been, it's not just in coaching, right? There's in like personal relationships, in friendships, whatever, people react really differently to different approaches to communication. Like there are people, and you know them, I know them, I've seen it, where if you raise your voice at all, even if
they
you're
shut
not
down.
Yeah, even if you're not yelling at them, right? Just the act of raising your voice at all causes that person to shut down. They hear nothing else, right? So if you're a coach and you get a little animated, whether you're being disrespectful or like demeaning or anything, it doesn't even have to be that, right? If you don't react well to people who raise their voice, which, by the way, happens a lot in coaches. Coaches yell. That's kind of a very common thing.
How you get a point across sometimes.
Half the time, it's just a practicality thing because it is often loud in the places you are coaching. Like that's honest to God. When I coached, I wasn't really like an angry yeller. The only times I would really yell is if somebody really pushed me to a point where I got to the point where I was angry enough to yell, which didn't happen very often. I mean, anybody who knows me, I'm not really a yeller, but 90% of the time it was a practical, these people need to hear me and it is loud in here. The only thing left to do is yell. So regardless of what the message is, a lot of times people don't receive that well. And I know like older people, especially, they'll be like, oh, kids are so soft, whatever. I don't know that it's a generational thing. I think fewer people in the younger generations respond well to yelling, but I don't know that a lot of people have ever responded super well to yelling. But I think the interesting part here is the perception of how Coach Cook came off to certain players that have spoken out, like Caffey or whoever, right? I don't know if it has, and again, it might have as much to do with the player and the way they receive information as it does the coach and the way they relay the information.
And here's another, here's what else I can say from the coach point of view. A head coach isn't meant to be your friend.
Right.
Their primary goal is to make the program successful. It's not always easy, especially with people of all different coaching styles and personalities, as Ravi was kind of pointing at with his take there. But do I think a coach should support an athlete's journey and be there for them? That's how I coach, so I think yes. But I also don't think it's a requirement because of how different coaching styles are kind of brought about.
I also think the level at which you're coaching matters there too.
And I also think it's important to note that coaching women and coaching men are two entirely different things. I can be hard on my guys at any time and they will receive anything, but that's also because they know it comes from a good place. But with women, I think you need to take a more emotional approach. And I've actually heard a lot of other coaches say that before. So it's not just me just making this claim. It's something that I've heard over the years. And when I actually went through a lot of coach trainings, that's something that they said, hey, these things are two different beasts, like tackling this versus tackling that. Look, that can be argued too. because somebody may say it's not. They're actually more similar than you think. But here's why I also think that, you can be harder like with guys versus girls is, or with women. I was on the women's basketball practice squad at Lindenwood.
Mhm.
Okay. The head coach of the team was very, very tough, like a hard nosed, like you said, a gruffy type of guy. Made the ladies run a lot. They were great. They were heavily conditioned, but they were also one of the faster teams in the conference because of it.
Mhm.
But at the end of the season, he was fired. Okay. And it was because a lot of players on the team went to the athletic director and shared some complaints. Mind you, this team just won their first ever conference championship as a team that wasn't supposed to win in the tournament. So firing Coach Francis at the time, I thought was like very bizarre and weird. But they wanted to feel the love more, and they just felt like they never got enough of that. And, maybe that's how Kathy felt, and that's why she went about posting this. Maybe Coach Cook was tougher to play for in years before. And, maybe, and I'm stealing this from one of our Hurrdat Sports coworkers that I had a conversation with. Maybe he's just gotten more patient and relaxed later on in life. And, there's a lot of possibilities. But again, what I know about John Cook and who he is today is that he's somebody that this team really respects.
Yeah.
And you know what? That right now, I think, is the most important thing to focus on, because people change over time if there was a change that needed to be made.
Yeah, and I want to go back to a little bit of what you said about kind of the difference between coaching men and women, because I mean, I've never coached women, so I don't have personal experience there.
And you know what? I've only coached girls.
Yeah.
And when I say girls, I mean like sixth grade girls.
Yeah, like younger, like youth.
So I can't really, connect with the women approach either, but I have played or practiced with a team that played for a tough coach and know some of those stories.
And what I think is the key there, whether it's men, whether it's women, is I think, and you kind of touched on it with your Lindenwood story, is feeling the love, right? Whether it's men, whether it's women, whether it's youth, whether it's adults. If you are clear about the fact that you care for your players, which I think Coach Cook is, like, I'm not saying that he's not. I think you can get away with is not the right term, but you have more leeway in terms of your coaching style, right? If you aren't very clear that you care about them as people outside of the sport, then the way you treat them when you coach, you have to be a lot more delicate. Whereas if you're crystal clear, they know without a shadow of a doubt that you care about them, that you love them, that you want what's best for them, not just in the sport, but outside of it as well. I think you can be a little rougher and be maybe a little bit more, yell a little bit more, a little bit gruffer than if you never show that other side of your personality and you never show that other side that you care about them. Because at the end of the day, men, women, adults, children, people want to be cared about as people first, and then you can get to the sports part of it. And to me, I think Coach Cook does a good job of that. I think from what we've seen from the majority of the players, he does a good job of that. But for whatever reason, Kayla Caffey obviously wasn't feeling that love. Coming up next, we're going to make some money, hopefully, with Brian Edwards, Vegas Insider. Wrapping up hour number 2 with our guy, Brian Edwards. B. Edwards, our Vegas Insider, trying to make us a little bit of money this weekend. And if you're trying to place some of these bets here in Nebraska, you got to go to the Warhorse Sportsbook, the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets, whether it's at the casino in Lincoln or at Horseman's Park here in Omaha. Warhorse Sportsbook has you covered. Straight bets, parlays, props, live in-game bets on nearly every major sporting event. Check out warhorsecasino.com/sportsbook or the Warhorse Casino app for the full list of details and house rules. Warhorse Sportsbook, no bets, no glory. Brian, how are you this morning? Oh, I think you're on mute, bud.
B, start scrambling. You got to
hit the button.
How about now?
There we go. There's our guy. B, how are you this morning?
Sorry, that happens like 50% of the time, doesn't it? I'm doing well. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas.
I don't know, man. I think it's more toward that 60% number.
I don't know. You were on a pretty good streak there for a minute. I thought you were doing good, but No, that's all right. You got back in the warm confines of your own home. You're not dealing without the no heat at mom's house anymore, and you got a little too comfy, I think.
That's right. That's right. I do have a play on a Thursday night game.
Let's
tonight.
do it. What do we
Whoa,
have?
hit me.
Yeah, I'm going to go Rams -4. I mean, the home team's always at an advantage on Thursday night football with a short week, but especially so when they got to fly across the country and through multiple time zones. And the Rams are playing their best football of the year. They've won 4 of their last 5, and the only loss during that stretch was, the overtime game in Baltimore where, maybe 1 or 3 illegal hands to the back could have been called. But they're playing good football at home. 3 straight home wins. Smashed Cleveland a couple weeks ago. Win by 8 over Washington and cover. Last week, squeezed in a 37-14 win at Arizona. And New Orleans, look, they had lost 3 in a row. They've got back-to-back wins, but at home to Carolina, 28-6. That was a misleading final. That was 14-6 midway through the 4th. And, they beat the Giants at home, but now they're on the road. I don't trust Derek Carr. I think we've got a big quarterback advantage with Stafford. I'll lay the 4.
Speaking of Baltimore, as you mentioned with that game against the Rams, they've got San Francisco in the biggest marquee matchup in quite a while in the NFL and certainly of the weekend. What are you liking on Monday night in that San Francisco and Baltimore match?
I'm liking the over. Now, I know both teams have elite defenses, but they also have elite offenses. Baltimore scored at least 31 in 6 of its last 8 games. The over going 5-3 in that stretch. Their last 4 overs had combined scores of 55, 64, 54, and 68. Ravens, number 1 in the NFL in rushing yards, and San Fran has scored at least 30 in 9 of its 14 games. But there was that 3-game stretch where they scored exactly 17 in all 3 when Trent Williams was hurt. Purdy even was a little banged up, or missed most of that. Was it the Cleveland game, or missed some of it? And Debo was hurt. But when they've been fully healthy, like the last 6 games, they've been fully healthy. They've scored 34, 27, 31, 42, 28, and 45. Overs 3-1 in their last 4. And look, 2 elite quarterbacks in McCaffrey and Jackson, and I think we'll get over 47.
Now, B, one of my favorite teams to watch this season, and I was happy to see this guy get a new job in college football too, John Sumrall's Troy Trojans. You have them as a play on this list. Now, Sumrall, I don't believe, is going to be coaching the Trojans for this bowl game, so that could have some influence in the outcome. But as you look at it, you still like Troy as the heavy favorite against Duke on Saturday.
Yeah, so it's 7.5, but some of the 7.5s are at -105. So let's buy the hook to the key number of 7. Troy 11-2 straight up, 8-5 ATS. They've won 10 in a row. 9 of those wins by 7 or more. 8 of those wins by 18 or more. And a lot of, almost the entire Sun Belt went bowling. So it's not like they've been beaten 2-10 teams. And Elko left Duke, so it's really a wash with the the coaching changes. But in terms of the personnel hitting the portal and whatnot, it's way more for Duke. I mean, they lost their all ACC defensive tackle, Aeneas Peebles, transferred to Virginia Tech. RJ Oben, who had 5 sacks, has also transferred. Their leading running back Jordan Waters is transferred to NC State. He had 753 rushing yards, 12 touchdowns, 5.3 yards per carry average. The location advantage is Troy playing in its home state in Birmingham. And Troy's won 5 bowl games in a row and covered in 5 in a row. And, they're trying to have back-to-back 12-win seasons and finish in the national rankings back-to-back years. So, again, the coaching changes are a wash. And Troy is pretty much has its team intact, whereas Duke missing a lot of guys. And I like Troy but let's make sure to buy the half point to 7. And if you're a teaser or a money line parlay guy, I think Troy fits that bill perfectly for whoever you might want to package it with.
We're talking with our Vegas insider, Brian Edwards. Tonight we've got Syracuse and South Florida. What are you liking in tonight's bowl game?
Yeah, so I'm going to go over 55.5. Both teams have terrible defenses. USF has had a pretty good offense, got a pretty good dual threat quarterback in Byram Brown. They've got the former Florida Gator running back Naquan Wright's had a big year. USF 15th in the nation in total offense, and they average 30.8 points per game, but they rank 131 out of 133 FBS teams in total defense. Dead last in pass defense, 124 in scoring D. They give up 34.9. The over 7-2 in USF's last 9 games. Those overs have had combined scores of 62, 70, 109, 70, 91, 74, and 71. And I know that the top 2 quarterbacks are out for the Cuse, but the last 2 games they had a Wildcat quarterback, their tight end Dan Villari, and he played pretty good. He can run it well. And look, LaQuint Allen, Syracuse running back, over 1,000 yards this year. He should be able to run all over USF. And the Cuse is without its best pass rusher as well. Leon Lowry hit the portal. I like it over 55.5 or 56.
Let's change gears to the bowl game tomorrow. It's UCF, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has some good wins this year. I mean, they beat UNC. They had that weird win against Mario Cristobal's Miami team, and then they even competed against Georgia in that last game. Only lost by, I think it was 8 points, if I remember correctly. So as a dog in this spot, I actually don't hate the play, even though I kind of have some weird sort of love for John Reese Plumlee.
I like Georgia Tech, and it's gone up. I mean, I was liking it at 4.5 yesterday, but it's 5.5 or 6 now. And Georgia Tech's been an underdog 8 times this year. They're 6-2 against the spread with 4 outright wins. And down the stretch, their last 7 games, they went 4-3 straight up, 5-2 ATS to get bowl eligible. And Georgia Tech is motivated, man. They haven't been to a bowl game since 2018, and UCF in its last 5 games as a favorite, they're 0-4-1 ATS with 3 outright losses. And if we go back their last 6 as a favorite against FBS opponents, so that excludes a win over Villanova, they're 0-5-1 ATS, their last 6 favored. And Haynes King makes a lot of good plays. So does John Rice Plumlee, but I like Tech catching the points.
Brian, let's switch back to the NFL on Sunday. You've got a couple plays here. Bengals and Steelers. Bengals are 2-point favorites there.
Yeah, I'm just I'll take Jake Browning over Mason Rudolph. And even though Jamar Chase is out, as is ZJ Reader, Bengals are hot, man. They've won 3 in a row, and they are in revenge mode here. They've won 3 in a row since losing at home to Pittsburgh 16-10, and that was Browning's first career start. And since that Pittsburgh winning at Cincy, Pittsburgh has lost 3 in a row, both straight up and against the spread, and they're 1-4 straight up in ATS in their last 5, including embarrassing home losses to Arizona and New England. And Steelers are banged up, man. Cam Hayward, Minka Fitzpatrick, Najee Harris, Pat Freiermuth, they are all questionable. Keanu Neal and DeMonte Casey are out in the secondary. Give me the Bengals.
All right, B, I have a fun Christmas question for you. I've been asking the guests this. I've set it up for today and tomorrow. My question to you is this. If Santa had a side job during the off season, what do you think he'd do?
Book bets.
There he goes. There he goes. He'd be a sports bettor like us, huh?
I was saying the other side of the counter, but either case.
Oh, okay. He'd be taking our money.
Brian Edwards, our Vegas insider. B, we appreciate your time as always. We'll be off next week, but enjoy your holidays, and we'll talk to you again after the new year.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Thanks, fellas.
Merry Christmas, man.
That's our guy, Brian Edwards, our Vegas insider. Make sure you go check him out on Twitter and his webpage as well. That's B Vegas Insider, or B Edwards Vegas Insider. More of Hurrdat Sports Radio with Michael Bruntz coming up next here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and of course for hour number 3, we're on KFOR in Lincoln as well. Also on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Wherever you're listening, we are brought to you by our friends at Pratt Dental. Pratt Dental, located in North Platte, Nebraska. They are certified in the BioClear method and modern smile design, which can correct many aesthetic dilemmas in a permanent and less invasive manner than traditional treatments such as crowns. You can do it in less time, less waiting, fewer appointments. You can get multiple restorations done in the same day. Make sure you check out prattdental.com/bioclear-dental-treatment or go to prattdental.com, P-R-A-T-T. Go to their services and click on the BioClear treatment. Pratt Dental, creating healthy smiles. A guy that's always got a nice, healthy smile for us is our friend Michael Bruntz from Husker 24/7. Bruntz, what's going on, buddy?
Not much. How you guys doing?
Good morning, Bruntsy.
We are doing pretty well. After the kind of whirlwind I know signing day can be for those of you in the recruiting website world, how you feeling this morning after Nebraska got obviously Dylan Raiola and then a few key flips as well?
Yeah, it's I have to say, just from a purely just worried about me point of view, it was kind of nice that Raiola announced on Monday when he did, because it kind of let everything breathe a little bit. So selfishly, that was okay with me. But yeah, I mean, things went Nebraska's way. I don't think any of those were particularly big surprises. Like Amari Sanders had been committed to Nebraska for over a month and was just waiting to go public with it. Larry Tarver had kind of been, expected to flip as well. So, it was as much of a kind of a stress-free signing day as you can have when you have, like, 4 guys commit with Bly Hill. But, I think that's partially, due to the way that Nebraska recruits now. The bulk of their class was done in July, before they even set foot on campus for fall camp. So that helps kind of, make things a little bit calmer. But, after that little, week hiccup where all of a sudden Dylan Raiola was visiting and, you had some question about what Daniel Kaelin was going to do. Everything just kind of, got back to normal and tied up with a nice little bow.
Bruntsy, how is Dylan Raiola's move not just a major one nationally for Nebraska's outlook, but also great just for the sport of college football to show that it's okay not to go to we'll call them 5 powerhouse schools if you want to make a name for yourself?
Yeah, I think there's been a little bit of a kind of a democratization of the 5 stars with NIL and that kind of thing. I think there's probably a little bit more of, look, like, especially at the quarterback spot, you can't load up in one place. I mean, there's only one guy can play. There's only one football. And if you're a highly ranked quarterback and you want to play early, you kind of got to pick your spot. And, there's only, one guy that can go to Georgia, one guy that can go to Alabama. And, I think that's kind of helped with kind of spreading the wealth a little bit. So I think it's good. I mean, it's the quarterback recruiting piece has been so interesting the last few years because, basically if a guy doesn't start his first 2 years at a place, he's probably not going to still be there. You still saw this year a ton of guys that, started significant games for their teams as freshmen, hit the portal and move on. So it's fascinating. I think, him coming to Nebraska, though, I think, Nebraska's been down for a long time, and that certainly changes the narrative a little bit for what the the short-term trajectory can be, I think, for the program.
We're talking with Michael Bruntz of Husker 24/7. Bruntz, do you think, you kind of mentioned the democratization of the 5 stars a little bit. Do you think as we continue into the NIL era, the transfer era, and now we sprinkle in the 12-team playoff era, where all of a sudden access to a championship is more available than it's ever been, do you think we will continue to see that trend in that direction?
That's a good question. I mean, I think with the playoff, you kind of need to see it play out once to kind of see what that's actually going to look like, at
Sure.
least from the perspective of a recruit, right? Like, it's one thing if a coach says, "Yeah, come to this school, we'll go 9-3, and we'll be in the playoff." You kind of want to see that happen, because otherwise it just kind of sounds like a recruiting pitch right now. But yeah, I mean, I think that'll play into it. I mean, with the NIL stuff, does that eventually go in-house with NCAA changes? I mean, that can very well shift things as well. So, there's not a lot of solid ground right now, I feel like, in college football, and certainly the playoffs a piece of it. I mean, are we going to get a split altogether of football and what that looks like? I mean, there's, it feels like year to year almost. You just can't count on a lot right now being long term in college football. But I think a lot of that stuff does kind of benefit a place like Nebraska, because it does I think play to some advantages that a place like Nebraska has.
Bruntz, let's go back to signing day for a moment. Statewide, who do you predict to have the biggest impact right away for this Nebraska football program, whether it's an immediate need or someone you just expect to be a difference maker early? Who do you predict that is?
Yeah.
And maybe take Dylan Raiola out of this conversation.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to take the layup. I want to drive to the hoop and get some contact here.
He wants the and one. He wants the hoop and the harm here.
Yeah.
Give me the charity stripe extra.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, I'm trying to think of the guys who are going to be on campus in January, because that's such a key piece of being able to play early, I think. And, I think a guy in the class that is going to maybe have something to say for, this season is Ja'Cory Barney. A wide receiver who played wide receiver, played some quarterback. Like, he did a little bit of everything. He's just a good football player, a tough football player. And, he's going to have to add some weight, but, that's one position where I think you look at it and, they're not going to be afraid to play a guy if he's ready, just because I still think there's going to be the depth chart there is going to still be a little bit thin. So I'll say Ja'Cory Barney is a guy that I'm watching very closely and will be in spring, because I think he's got a chance to come in and help right away. The class is interesting because it was huge on offensive linemen. We'd have 6 or 7 offensive linemen in the class. Those guys typically don't get on the field early, so that doesn't help you much there. You only got one quarterback that can play. And, I just think a lot of it's going to kind of be more of a developmental class, even though, Nebraska showed that they're willing to get guys on the field early as freshmen at certain spots. But I would kind of lean Barney at wide receiver. I think he's going to be a guy to watch.
Yeah, Barney was a name that stuck out to me as well. And then one other name that I'm curious what your thoughts are, Coach Rhule brought up yesterday, they talked about Carter Nelson being in kind of a San Francisco 49ers role. And I'm sure most people thought Kittle when they thought tight end Carter Nelson. I thought Kyle Juszczyk, because the way they used to use him before Christian McCaffrey came around, he got lined up all over the field, H-back, running back, tight end, out wide sometimes. Like, could you see somebody with that versatile skill set maybe make an impact right away? Or because of where he's coming from in terms of level of competition, being an 8-man, which is just, it's a different game. Do you think maybe he takes a little longer?
That was the only reason that I didn't say him right away, was I think there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment coming from 8-man to 11. and I think he can figure it out. I mean,
Sure.
he's a freak athlete. Like there's that's not taking anything away from him. I mean, I'm kind of curious to see. I mean, he's going to be at the All-American Bowl in a couple of weeks here against, the country's best. And I'm eager to kind of see how he holds up. Because I think he has the skill set and, the way that they can potentially use him on offense and what they've talked about, that's intriguing to me. And that I think sometimes too, if you can carve out a spot for a guy and you can say, this is what your role is going to be, and we want you to do this really well, I think that simplifies things a bit. I mean, I think I'd be a little bit more ready to say, like, he's a day one contributor if he were coming in the spring. Because I think that just kind of puts you behind a little bit. He's going to have to put on some weight, I think, to kind of do what they want him to. But yeah, I mean, I think in terms of just offensive pieces, I mean, he was by far the biggest get. Whether that's H-back, running back, tight end, wide receiver, wherever. I'm eager to see what they kind of do with him because it's funny that the Raiola signing kind of overshadowed everything, but I mean that was a real elbows out recruiting win that Nebraska had there. I mean I think it probably gets lost because he's an in-state kid and had been committed for so long, but they really did a good job of getting that one over the finish line.
Yeah, I mean he finished the year number 43 according to your 24/7 sports rankings in the country. So that's a pretty good number there, getting a top 50 guy. I'm curious what you think, because Coach Rhule talking about the defensive backs and all the defensive backs that they've brought into the room, because they brought a ton of tight ends in, they brought a ton of offensive linemen in, they also brought a ton of defensive backs. Out of this group, do you look at any of those guys and say, hey, that's a day one contributor? And also, do you look at any of those guys as obvious examples of people that might get put into maybe linebacker positions or edge rusher positions the way that Coach Rhule was talking about?
Yeah, no, of the guys, I mean, I think they're a little thin still on true corners. I could see Mario Buford, potentially getting in the conversation early on. He's going to be an early enrollee, played at a really high level in Texas for his time down there. I think, if you've been around his brother at all, there's a maturity there that you don't often see in young college kids, which I think helps too. So I think he's a guy that you could see on the field sooner than later. In terms of guys that could kind of grow into linebackers, I mean, a Braylon Prude, I mean, I know that we listed him as a safety, but I think he eventually lands at linebacker. He's, 6'3", 6'4", and can run. I know he had just an absolutely horrific injury his senior year, but Rex Guthrie is probably going to slide into that Isaac Gifford role by the time everything's said and done as a rover, maybe a smaller linebacker. He's just a prolific tackler, had over 120 tackles as a junior out in Colorado. He'll be on campus early rehabbing from a dislocated ankle and a broken bone in his leg. Like, it was pretty bad. So that'll sort itself out. I think, they need a lot of defensive backs. They're trying to increase competition in that group. And the way they recruit guys, I mean, it's a guy could end up as a safety. Maybe he's a corner. I mean, you saw what they did with, Malcolm Hartzog, moving him back and forth. And they've had guys in the past like Quentin Newsom that have kind of done that if needed. So I think it sorts itself out. I think they're also just kind of trying to find guys who have a ton of upside. I mean, Amari Sanders is another guy who hasn't played a ton of football, could be a corner, maybe a safety at some point, but just a rangy guy that can run. I mean, that's what the staff looks for is traits and attributes in that secondary, and I think they got a lot of those types of guys.
Bruntz, you mentioned the linebacker position. What was your reaction to the Eric Fields news yesterday? I mean, that's a player I thought had tremendous athletic ability and definitely was one of the more intriguing commits of the 2023 class. Did that update come as a complete surprise to you as well?
We had kind of been hearing that was not trending well in terms of him staying on campus. He hadn't really dressed out for any games early in the year. I was going back and looking through what we'd written about him in fall camp, and I think there was a lot of excitement about him. But, you didn't hear him mentioned as the year went on, and that's never usually a good sign. And he went home. He's not in the transfer portal. And I mean, you guys remember last year at National Signing Day, Matt Rhule singled him out and basically said, like, you're going to know who Eric Fields is. And, I think he's a tremendously talented defensive player. It just, for whatever reason, didn't mesh with him in Lincoln. And, maybe that's, I don't know if there's, stuff going on there, what happened, but, yeah, I mean, I think he was a guy that was the staff viewed as a very, very high upside guy, and somebody that, eventually would have been, that Isaac Gifford type role, or maybe grown into a little bit bigger linebacker. So, I think there's a little bit of disappointment over there in North Stadium that didn't work out, because I think they felt like they got a guy that was very, very under the radar.
We're talking with Michael Bruntz of Husker 24/7. Speaking of under the radar, Bruntz, are there any kind of sleepers from this 2024 class that you're low key pretty excited about?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting class. I mean, I got to see Landon Davidson, the offensive lineman from Colorado, play earlier this fall, and he earned his offer at camp. Had a little bit of recruiting juice behind his name, but not a ton. Mm-hmm. And, I think he profiles really well to a guard, at some point. I think, a lot of these offensive linemen, they did a pretty good job of bringing in some a good mix of interior guys, a couple tackles. And I think that's probably, I would say that group is probably the strength of the class. I mean, I think there's some guys that can play earlier in their careers. You've got a really, really high upside guy, Grant Bricks, in that class that was coveted by pretty much everybody that matters, a top 247 player. And then I think another guy in that kind of offensive line group that, because of when he committed, because of where he lives, it just isn't getting talked about much, is Preston Taumua, the offensive lineman out of Hawaii. Nebraska beat out Oregon, Auburn, and Arizona for this kid. I talked to him the other night. He's 6'4", 320 pounds right now. Could play tackle if they need him to, but he's probably a guard. And, I think that was a really big recruiting win for Nebraska. I don't think that he expected going into his visits that he was going to end up with Nebraska, but they beat out those programs for him. And, he's coming off of a knee injury. He played the second half of his season in Hawaii, won a state championship, but he's a sharp kid. He'll be here in the summer, and another kid that, with the offensive line group the way it is, you've got a lot of veterans like Ben Hart, Ben Scott, and those guys, and then they're going to have to pass that off to some of these young guys that came in last year and this year. And I think this line class that they have is going to be really important for kind of that next wave of starting offensive linemen in Nebraska.
Bruntz, speaking of linemen from Colorado, Jordan Seaton's name has kind of been hitting the skies, right? Everybody's like, what's going on with Jordan Seaton? And Nebraska is somebody that is in the Seaton mix right now. What is the latest on him?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of the last couple of days before National Signing Day, there'd been a lot of momentum for him to Maryland. Kind of away from Colorado. I know he visited Oregon. Dylan Raiola is trying to get in there and do some peer recruiting. And that's the benefit of having a 5-star quarterback in your class. I mean, people notice that gets your DMs and your texts read a little bit more quickly, I think. So, they're going to take their shot at it. We'll see how it goes. But, yeah, I don't know. Those recruitments that kind of go on for, a couple days after National Signing Day, things like that, it always gives me a little bit of pause. Certainly a talented prospect, but, I kind of wonder whether, how much Matt Rhule and his staff kind of have a stomach for that kind of thing. So we'll see. I mean, he's a talented kid. Nebraska's going to take their shot, but yeah. Anyways, we'll see. But last I knew, Maryland was still kind of trending with him and kind of away from Colorado.
Bruntz, who's the local media version of the guy that gets your text message read a little bit faster?
that text me that I take a look at.
Yeah, that like let's say, like if, no offense to Danny Kaelin, if Danny Kaelin texts you, like, yeah, you look at it, maybe you respond if you think about it. But if Dylan Raiola texts you, you're like, oh, okay. Who's the Dylan Raiola of, like, you get the text from local media and you're like, all right, let's do this?
That's a good question. I don't want to leave anybody out.
Shane Schillerberg.
Listen,
Yeah.
Bruntz, it's okay. Everybody's a 4-star here. We just want to know who the 5-star is.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, Shane.
I think here's what you get. I look at a little bit faster.
Okay.
If you get the Keith Mann text out of the blue, and that's not local media, but if you get the Keith Mann text out of the blue, you're like, okay, what's going on here? What do I need to know about? Where do I need to be at what time? That's when I usually my ears perk up a little bit. So that's what I'll go with. I'll go right down the middle. The Keith Mann text. It's not.
You can't pick the or. You can't pick the or. It can't be Ravi or Andrew, and you choose or. Like, that's not allowed.
Not a depth chart. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm gonna let you off the hook. You're being diplomatic.
I'll say this: it used to be Andrew back when he was giving me some first inning picks. So,
Hey, that is always a thrilling message to receive.
The first inning overs. Let's go, baby.
I get like some inside info that the starting pitcher for the Cardinals is like dealing with a family thing. He might not be dialed in the first inning.
I got you. I'll catch you back up. I'll get you back up to speed once baseball season rolls in.
Nice.
Hey, quick one here before we let you go, Bruntz. You got about a minute and a half. I'm going to ask you a Christmas-themed question. I've been doing it with every guest today. Okay, you ready?
Okay. Yep.
Which Christmas movie character, I should say, do you think you'd get along with the most, and why?
Let's see here. I would say Clark Griswold.
I knew it. I knew it.
The older I've gotten, the more I've come to understand and appreciate his viewpoint on life. So I would say Clark Griswold.
I knew he was going to go that direction. I'm like, man, Bruntz seems like a Clark Griswold guy.
Yeah. I think I've begun to appreciate that more. So I would say Clark Griswold probably. Although we've never done like the huge like hosting thing because I can't be part of that. But
your bonus check wasn't a year-long membership to the Jelly of the Month Club.
Yeah.
Bruntz, we appreciate it. We'll be off next week, so we won't get a chance to talk to you. But happy holidays, and we will talk to you in the new year.
You too, guys. Take care. Have a good one. All right.
See you, man.
That's Michael Bruntz from Husker 24/7. Appreciate Bruntsy and his willingness to let us be a little goofy there as we wrap up his segment. Coming up next, we're going to get to Hurrdat Hot Seat as we wrap up the show, the last half hour here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln.
We will be back.
Welcome back into Hurrdat Sports Radio here on a Thursday. AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. We're on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook as well. But wherever you're listening, we're brought to you by our friends at Dingman's Collision Center. Dingman's has been family-owned and operated in Omaha for over 25 years, and they've been voted first place best of Omaha for over 18 years running. They've got 4 great Omaha area locations. They can work on whatever make and model you've got because they've got the latest technology. They stay up to date because they invest in it. They also invest in the community. They're not just running a business here. They live here. They work here as well, and they want their community to be as good as possible. That's why they have their Give Back program at Dingman's. Go check it out, dingmans.com, to learn more about their services and more about their Give Back program. That's Dingman's Collision Center. All right, it's time for the Hurrdat Hot Seat. Andrew's got a bunch of good questions, he told me.
Yeah, you can grade them later.
I will grade them
But
later.
I need some validation to start.
But I'm going to allow you to go first because you seem pretty jazzed up about your questions.
So my first question
let's
was sparked during our interview with Anna Bellinghausen yesterday.
Okay.
Because she had brought up, hey, have you guys seen any of the EA Sports opens with the player commitments?
Yes.
And I had said, I've seen them, but I haven't been able to like listen to any if they had
because they were
audio.
rolling in
And
while we were
right.
on,
And
on
she
air.
was like, hey, like, go back and watch them.
Mhm.
So I did. I went back and watched every single one.
Mhm.
I retweeted every single one. And I hope at like 4:00 after I was done mopping the floors and vacuuming my house that everybody got all of them in bulk so they could watch them again. Ravi, when you were watching each commitment video,
Yes.
okay, which was your favorite play that followed the commits player card?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm going to have to go back and look to give myself a little reference. So why don't you go first? Because I'm sure
So
you
I have
an
two.
answer.
I have two.
Okay.
The first one I thought was very clever
Yes.
in regards to Dylan Raiola's commitment.
Okay.
It was recreating one of the greatest runs in college football history, Tommy Frazier's touchdown run
Against Florida?
against Florida.
Yep.
And the game was against Florida in Dylan Raiola's commitment video, and he was just lighting up dudes as he was running to the end zone. I thought that was an incredible play by the video department over at Nebraska. But the other one, I thought the Danny Kaelin trick play was pretty fire. It
Okay.
was I don't remember who got the handoff, but it was a pitch back to Davon Hall, and Davon Hall threw it down the field to Danny Kaelin for a touchdown.
Okay.
A nice little trick play. I thought that was a pretty good one too. And then, oh goodness, see, I could just talk about these all day. You know, you probably like watched Grant Bricks's and some other offensive linemen that committed in their videos and thought, what can you like really do with an offensive lineman? I thought it was just awesome that it was just constant pounding on the offensive line, like with Grant Bricks in his video. It was just smash, smash, smash. So, man, I tip my cap to those over at the Husker football video department because they outdid themselves.
So my favorite one, I couldn't remember who it was, so I had to find it. But it's actually a walk-on because they did these not just for the scholarship guys, they did them for the walk-ons as well. It was, hold on, let me find it again. I lost it. I tried to find it. It was Isaac Dickey.
Okay.
So his was the one of Corey Schlesinger's fullback traps up the sideline to I believe that was to tie the game against Miami back in the 95 Orange Bowl following the 94 season. It was the first of his 2 touchdowns, and then they showed the second of Corey Schlesinger's 2 touchdowns as well.
Great.
You know, in Nebraska, we love a fullback, and Isaac Dickey got the honestly the all-time fullback treatment with the Corey Schlesinger 2 touchdown game against Miami. So that part of the reason is, you know, much like the Tommy Frazier run against Florida, like I remember sitting in my living room, like on my floor as a kid watching these plays. And so I'm sure for Isaac Dickey, kid from Stromsburg, Nebraska, like that probably hit hard for him as well. But that was my favorite one was Isaac Dickey. So,
all right, hit me with your question.
Yeah, those videos, by the way, were
outstanding,
incredible. All right, so I'm going to start with a Christmas one here.
Oh, okay. All right, hit me.
A lot of people ask, and you can answer this part of it as well. What is the favorite Christmas gift you've ever gotten? My question is, what is your favorite Christmas gift you've ever given someone?
See, that's a better question than gotten. Because no one wants to be like, yeah,
I got this really cool thing.
Yeah, like last year I got this like RCX helicopter, and no other kid in my class got that. So I'd play, all right,
which
great,
don't get me wrong, I'm not going to pretend to be one of those people.
Hey, blow up your head some more.
Listen, I'm not going to be one of those people to pretend like I don't like getting gifts. I do. I think it's awesome. But there is something really cool when you are able to find a gift and give it to somebody and they like really, really love it. Like it's a super cool feeling, especially if it's kind of a surprise to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you actually like nail it on the head. That's super satisfying.
I love giving Christmas gifts. Like I'll start by saying
Sure,
that.
yeah.
So I'm like thinking back, but because it's hard for me to even like say like this was like an awesome gift. Like to me, I thought it was an incredible gift because I thought it was well thought out. It was structured like the way I was going about it. And you're going to like you're going to look at me and be like, dude, those were like $10.
That's okay. That's all
Okay?
right.
But I got my dad these boat erasers off of Amazon.
Okay.
So like our pontoon boat at the lake house gets like, I mean, it is so full of bugs, like dead bugs. It's like they're stuck on the leather. It's
how it happens with boats.
Oh my goodness. And it's so hard to clean. And I got him these boat erasers, and I'm like, this is like gonna be the best gift ever. Because it was like a magic eraser.
Yeah.
Like you just get it wet, you scrub the boat, and he said they worked incredibly well. And it was such a cheap gift.
Yeah.
Like it was like $10-15. But when I think about getting a gift for somebody, I'm like, I'm not just going to get you grill tools because you cook chicken all the time or burgers or whatever. You have grill tools.
Yeah.
What can I get you that you don't have that is actually going to be a benefit to your life?
Yeah, like make your life better.
And I found these boat erasers, man, and I was over the moon when I was able to give it to him. I'm not even kidding. Like that to me, I think was the best gift I've ever given.
I might have to have you send me those because I gotta do a little boat cleaning of my own.
Now, just some advice here. Chances are, if that's their hobby, if grilling is their hobby, they're probably going to have a preference in what they use for tools. So, for you to get somebody grill tools like that, I mean, you're taking a big chance there that they'll even use them later on.
Yeah, dude. $14.
Send me that link.
Like he said, they worked incredibly well.
But no, Shane's right. So that actually kind of gets to my point with my wife because she is very particular about the things she likes. Like I know her like preferences on like brands and stuff like that. If she wants to get like shoes or clothes or a purse or whatever it is, right? I know the types of things she likes, but it's a very like texture thing that I can't identify. She has to be there and like touch it and like see how it feels and whatever. And so it's really hard to buy her stuff sometimes.
And if you get grill tools for your dad, he may save those. Like when you come over, they're out there, he's using them. But
yeah, but I just wanted to find something that was like off the beaten path.
Yeah, which I mean, it sounds like you nailed it. My favorite thing that this did benefit me too as well. I'm not gonna lie to you. But
there we go.
So my wife when we met, and she still has Shadow. We still have Shadow. She has this dog.
I have a Shadow too.
He is a big black bully breed mixed dog, right? And like he's like a Labrador and maybe like a Cane Corso or something. He's just a big black.
Careful how you finish that sentence.
Dog. He is a great dog and like super snuggly. All he wants to do is cuddle, and she's obsessed with his dog. I am too now. And so for as long as I've known her, because she got him when he was full grown, she's like, I would love to have gotten Shadow as a puppy. And she's like, if you ever find basically a clone of Shadow, make sure you get him. And so the rescue where I got Tally, who I talked about a couple weeks ago, and Raggy, who we still have,
who is named after Ravi's favorite basketball player,
Ethan Raggy, Lumberjack, baby. He was at CHI last night. I was so excited. This rescue had.
I named my dog after you.
I told him that on the air once, and he didn't file a restraining order. I was pumped. But I found this dog at the rescue, and he is a clone of Shadow. And so I was like, hey, babe, we have to go to Walt Hill, Nebraska this morning. She's like, what do you mean? I showed her a picture of the dog, and she lost her mind.
Great.
And I love Doug to death, so it does benefit me too.
Right.
But that's the happiest I've ever seen anyone after getting him a gift.
Awesome.
We will continue Hurrdat Hot Seat coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up the show here on a Thursday on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me. We're live at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill on H&H Chevrolet Stage, live on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. We are playing a little bit of Hurrdat Hot Seat for segment number 2 here. I believe I went last with what's your favorite Christmas gift you've ever given someone. So you are up, my friend.
All right, Ravi, back on the sports train.
Let's do it.
Which sports mascot do you think would make the best wingman?
Oh, okay. That's a good one.
This is how my brain works at home.
Yeah, no, I like that, man. That's a good one. All right. So I'm trying to decide if I feel like you want to go goofy because I think with a wingman, you want him to be a little funny. You want a little icebreaker there, but you don't want him to steal too much of your thunder, right? So my instant thought here was I think I want to go Benny the Bull.
See, that's a good one. That's a really good one.
I think he'd be fun. He seems like a good time. Seems like he can be a little funny, but I don't think he's Mr. Steal Your Girl. I think you're okay.
Other mascots I thought about, the first one was Philly the Fanatic.
That's what I thought of Philly Fanatic too.
And I'll tell you this, yes, he would be Mr. Steal Your Girl in a lot of ways, but I think with the interactions we've been able to see with Major League Baseball players and Philly the Fanatic, sometimes Major League Baseball players come out on top, and then Philly Fanatic walks away embarrassed.
It's true.
He may be able to draw a lot of attention, which is what you want out of a wingman.
That's true.
But can he seal the deal? Philly the Fanatic is one. Gritty's another one. Gritty is the Philadelphia Flyers mascot.
Yep. Ooh, Gritty's a good one.
You said Benny the Bull. I thought about like the gorilla, the Suns gorilla.
Yeah, I feel like he's a little bit too much like look at me. Like he's a little too. I think he wants to be the guy, not the wingman.
Fair enough.
So I worry about the gorilla a little bit.
The Colts mascot, Blue.
Oh, Blue would be a great one.
He's a good one. Fredbird is the Cardinals one, which I'm familiar with most. He's very friendly, so I could see that one too. I'd probably lean Philly the Fanatic, though, just because he's the most popular.
Sure.
He'll draw the most attention.
I just wonder if he wants to be too much the center of attention. That might backfire on you.
But see, that could be good too, though, because if he wants all the attention, he may lose the attention of the one that you want to end up with.
It's
so
true.
then you sit down next to, say, your now wife and be like, can you believe this guy? And then like start a good conversation.
Would you go with the chicken?
No,
San Diego chicken.
I don't think San Diego chicken's the way to go. I don't think so.
I mean, he's funny.
He's too famous. He's too famous.
You know what? Speaking of famous, the Kansas City Wolf.
Okay,
So the Chiefs mascot.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear the story about how he almost died?
No.
So they were like trying out a stunt at the stadium.
Yeah.
And he fell like 45 meters onto some seats,
Oh,
broke
geez.
both of the seats, broke a ton of like bones in his body, survived. He's still the mascot.
What on
It's an
earth?
insane story. I highly recommend people go back and look up the Kansas City Wolf
I do
stunt story.
also have to shout out, he's a little less famous, but Wally, the Boston Red Sox mascot, similar vibe to the Fanatic, but I don't think he's got quite the ego, so that might help you out there. He kind of just seems like your big funny friend. And I think that works well as a wingman. So
I don't know if 45 meters equals 75 feet, but that's
no,
that's how
I think
far
that's
he fell.
closer to about 20 meters.
Okay, so yeah, he fell
20.
75 feet.
Yeah, I think
That's
about 20
crazy.
meters. No, that's a long way. That's too far. I don't want to do that. Let's move on to my next question. Okay, also a sports one for you.
Man, then I can wrap this thing up with Christmas.
Oh,
baby.
Recruiting question here for you. Okay.
Ready?
Would you trade Dylan Raiola?
No.
Hear me
He's
out.
mine.
Hear me out. For a good 4-star quarterback prospect. So let's call it like an Air Noland. Go into Ohio State, obviously a real high-level guy, 4-star recruit, okay? But he's not the best recruit in the class.
Mm-hmm.
If it meant you got a 5-star receiver as well.
No. Because Dylan Raiola the quarterback position is so important on the football field and can decide so many different outcomes of a game that I want the best player at that position.
Okay.
And then I can work with what I have on the outside.
So
I can work with the 3 and 4 stars on the world on the outside. I don't need that 5-star thriller because I know Dylan Raiola can make up for more mistakes than he'll actually act on.
What how much would I have to add in there before you would take the trade? 5-star running back as well? We're talking about a 5-star offensive tackle.
See, the running back, like the 5-star running back could be lethal But again, you have to rely on your offensive line to.
So we're
be
talking
able to
about
open
like
things up.
we're talking about like a 5-star tackle, maybe. Let's say I switch out the receiver. You don't get the receiver, but you get the 4-star quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Very good quarterback, by the way. Ohio State's taking him.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say a 5-star, like Brendan Baker. Let's say you get a 5-star tackle as well. Are we taking that trade?
I need you to juice it up for me.
You need okay. All right. Let's go 4-star quarterback. I'm going to give you
the 5-star O lineman.
The 5-star O lineman, and I'm going to toss in a 4-star receiver.
I'll take it.
Shane's all over that.
I feel like I'm on the NBA trade machine right now, just trying to work this out.
And you see like the bar come across, and
trade
it's like
failed.
3/4 of the way, and it's like, how do I have to offer more? I just gave you 2 first-round picks.
I spent too much time on NBA trade machine.
4-star, 5-star, 4-star.
I think you're gonna pull the trigger. I think I could see it. I can see it. There's too much.
So if I had the option instead of the receiver to do the running back, I'd probably would take a 4-star.
That's why I went wide receiver instead, because I thought the running back made it too easy. I thought it made it too easy.
I hate your guts.
So to the initial question, no, you're taking Raiola.
To the initial question, no, I would take the bulk of that trade, though.
So
I would take that. I would take the 5-star tackle. I'd take the 4-star quarterback, and I would take.
So you need 2 4-stars
and a 5-star
and a 5-star to make up for Dylan Raiola. All right, that's the trade value.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we.
I think that's very fair.
I don't disagree. I mean, I don't. I really don't. All right, you're up.
All right, question number 3, because we've already had 2 this segment.
That's how it works. That's how counting works.
All right, if you, which one? Ooh, 2 Christmas questions. I'll start with this one.
All right.
If you could replace Rudolph with any animal to lead Santa's sleigh, what would it be and why?
My initial thought, just on pure comedy, was a rhinoceros.
Yeah, all right.
I just want to see him like charging.
You can like see like his head,
and he's got the he's still got a prominent nose. It's a little different than the red-nosed reindeer, but the horn's very prominent there for my guy the rhino. I don't know why. I think I'm imagining like the scene in Elf where he's like trying to get off the ground in New York, and just imagining a rhino in New York, like
in front.
I don't know why. It's just really funny to me.
I love the first thought. See, I would want to make it a very inconvenient animal,
like a chihuahua,
like either a chihuahua or a giraffe, like no in between.
He's like, he's got the harness way up on his neck. He's like, come on, guys. It's like when you're trying to move furniture with somebody that's like a foot taller than you, and you're like carrying a couch, and so you're trying to like up here,
and that's like at their level.
Yeah, and you're like going up like a case of stairs, and you're like, I'm on the wrong end for this.
Dude, like I think a giraffe would be hysterical.
A giraffe would be really fun. I just imagine like the old like Taco Bell Chihuahua. Feliz Navidad.
It's like who's leading that sleigh? You see these giant reindeer, and it's like who's in front up there?
It's true. It's the Taco Bell dog. All right, we got 2 minutes left. You seemed really excited about.
Yeah, let me ask you another Christmas question.
Go ahead.
Okay, Shane, chime in here too if you'd like. If you could spend Christmas anywhere in the world,
ooh, okay,
where would it be?
So for me, and I don't actually remember where it is. I think it's in Washington State. They have these like Christmas villages.
Yeah, they do. Oh man, you're such a Hallmark movie. Did you get stranded? You're from the big city.
I'm from the big city. I meet somebody on the side of the road. My rental car broke down.
You're actually a wood carver.
I was on my
past life.
I was on my way to finish a big deal. No, but they have these. I mean, they literally have them set up they're like Christmas towns, and they look like these scenes out of a snow globe, basically. And
those are cool, like the central scene of what a snow globe is.
Yeah, and that's like the entire economy of the town is being a Christmas town.
Gosh, that's so cool.
And I can't think of the name of one off the top of my head, but I think they have a couple I think there's one in Michigan. I know there's a one in Washington State as well. But just going to these places that give you like the whole like magic of Christmas, like you feel like you're in a movie feel.
Mhm.
I'd probably choose one of those because A, I think it would be cool, and B, it would make my wife so happy because she's such like a Christmas nerd. She loves it.
And this is assuming your family's with you. So like you're not saying like I
by
would just go
myself.
home and spend it with family.
Yeah.
No, like you're going
everybody
somewhere.
gets to go,
Yeah.
all expenses paid. Like,
It's like wondering what Macaulay Culkin's dad did in Home Alone.
Yeah.
What job did you have so that 9 people could go to Paris?
I don't know, but quick, we got about 20 seconds. What's your answer?
Oh man, Shane, go ahead, chime in.
I'll take Hawaii because that's the easy route. It's warm. There's no snow. I'm there.
See, the Christmas Village is such a cool answer, and like I wish I could bump off of that, but I think I'd go tropical too.
Yeah,
Like, you could find me and the family in
Turks and Caicos.
gosh, yeah, like send me to Thailand, like something like that. Like,
Andrew
take me somewhere
Rogers
tropical.
here for a tropical Christmas. Tomorrow we will wrap up the week, a big week for Nebraska here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.